I'm Marc Silber, and thank you for joining me on my course, The Secrets to Amazing Photo Composition from the Masters. Composition is how you arrange the subject matter within the frame of your camera. Now, this is a rectangular frame. Some cameras are square, but for the most part, you're going to have a rectangular frame. And composition is how you arrange that subject within this frame to tell your story. I'm going to give you 83 different compositional tools that I've researched from master photographers and artists. Are there more? Undoubtedly, but these are the key ones that those artists and photographers have used. And I'm going to show you how you can use them and implement them into your own photography to tell the stories that you really want to tell. Composition is like cooking, where you have the same basic ingredients, but very different outcomes. Let's say we have somebody cooking and they're using flour, sugar, salt, water, butter, and they're putting them together in the morning for pancakes. And at lunch, they make biscuits. And at night, they make a beautiful angel food cake. The same core ingredients, but with very different outcomes. As you'll see, there are many core ingredients to composition that you can use individually or in combination with the same subject to tell your story in an infinite number of ways. And that's what I'm showing you here. These are compositional tools that you can mix and combine and form a vocabulary of your composition. And when you have that in mind, you're going to see a lot more photographs and be able to make a lot more really amazing images. Follow me while I'm out shooting to give some live illustrations of these different compositional tools. You know, it can be like a treasure hunt to go out and see how many of them you can find in a single shoot. I want to show you some that I've found and give you some ideas of how these tools can be used in your own shooting. I recommend this drill to you while you're studying this class and after. Go out and find examples of them to train your eye. Would you go stand next to this redwood tree and just lean? Yeah, that's good. Composition point number one, framing. Okay, a frame adds a border to your photograph, but it also adds contrast, because you'll see here there's contrast between her skin and the redwood tree. There's a lot of contrast there. It also puts another layer there, and it just kind of puts a nice little polished touch. This is the first thing I learned when I was 11 or 12 years old from my uncle Sambo. He told me about framing. And there's a lot of variations of framing that we're going to take a look at. This is the most basic one, which is use the edge of a tree, use a door frame, use a window, all sorts of things. That's really nice. Okay, so we're at a different part of the park that we were. This is the Flanders Estate in Carmel. And we have very little light left, you guys. So we're going to take advantage of it. Now, this isn't an ideal spot without a lot of light, but we're going to play with it anyway, because I love the door frame as a framing tool. And then I'm going to leave the light in. We might be able to work with that in Lightroom to actually turn that light on, which would be kind of cool. Let's go over to the other side anyway. So I had that little flash, that little vision there of her. You know, here we are out in the wilderness. She's lying down, she's reclining, she's taking a breather. Boom. And I'm definitely shooting landscape, getting her whole body in. Now, what I'm noticing is I've got a lot of stuff in the background. I mean, there isn't any place except maybe this direction. I'm going to turn around this way. Oh yeah, look over your shoulder. That's cool. So, you know, sometimes you just have what you have in the frame. And I am framing you between two trees. Aha, we're back to framing again. You know, a lot of photography is about experimenting. You're using your camera to tell a story or to convey a feeling or emotion. And one of the ways you can do that is by changing the angle of your camera. It's something that you can play with and experiment with, but you don't have to just hold it level, either landscape or portrait. You can sometimes just turn it at a slight angle, just like putting a little bit of seasoning in food. It can change the whole dynamic of the photograph. And you see what I'm doing here is just playing with it just a little bit. As you can see, there's just a little angle in the photograph which adds a dynamic energy to it. And remember to try these out yourself. Turn at an angle, see what happens. Okay, let's go close, because I've been shooting fairly far away. Now I'm going to come in for a real portrait here. And that's very nice. But I still have her framed against the tree. And nice. I have a grid on my camera, which is set to, is it a rule of thirds? It's set, it's not a rule, it's a guideline. I have it set, I use it or not, depending on what I am trying to do. Geometry adds actually pleasure and interest to your photograph. And you can see what I've done here with Ariel is I placed her not quite in the center, but I've placed her on this bench. And the bench is all about geometry. It's got the lines of the bench itself and the back lines, which are all rectangles. The whole bench itself is one rectangle. It's got the curve in the arm. And here she is, you know, sitting there amongst this geometry. And that can just add a nice element to your photograph.
Because of its integral relationship to composition, we're going to explore the many applications of geometry in composition. Geometry adds a sense of structure, order and harmony. Everything in the right place. Develop your sense of geometry by looking for geometric shapes to photograph on their own, or to combine with your subject.
And here we are, we're using all sorts of interesting geometry for this next part of the shoot. Is we have the texture of the bricks, and this is all, we have the door frame, which is an obvious frame, but we also have the bricks themselves kind of leading our eye up to her. That's very cool. And also, now I can drop my angle. Yeah, that's very cool. So we've got a lot of different things going on here.
Number 7. Leading lines direct attention. A line is the simplest of geometric forms, as it connects two or more points. You can use a line to connect the foreground to your main point of interest in your photograph. There could be a misconception that your viewer's attention is just going to wander around and there's no way to control it. A leading line, however, is a powerful composition tool that does exactly what it says. It leads the viewer's eye to the main subject, or point of interest in your photograph. And as the lines also converge, they point even more to your subject. Look for lines that lead off in the distance. Streets, fences and railroad tracks are good candidates. Place your subject or point of interest on a leading line.
I want to get low, because I want to get the lines of the road leading up to her, and I'm going to go to manual focus because, you know, sometimes you just want to make sure you've got it. There we go. Okay, perfect. Now, I'm getting, there she is. Boom. Yeah, there we go, nice. Up a little bit, yeah, good. A little more of a V shape, tighter like this, yeah. Nice, okay, good. All right, so that's one example of a leading line. I mean, I love roads, I love railroad tracks, I love things that lead your eye because that's where your viewer is going to be led. So that's a handy tool, a really great compositional tool.
Number 8. Diagonal lines can add movement, interest and vitality. A diagonal is also a line, but it's not straight up or across, it's angled. It's amazing how effective it is in adding interest, the sense of movement and vitality to a photograph. Look for diagonal lines to photograph your subjects on, shooting and experimenting with how you place them on the lines.
Here I am shooting this beautiful model, Point Lobos. There's a lot of trees, and I wanted to really take advantage of what was in the background, but not have it distract. In this case, you have diagonal lines from the trees themselves. Here she is. She's got this really wonderful glow, and there's actually backlight from the sun behind her. And then we have the diagonal of these branches behind her, which add vitality and interest. But because I didn't want to have you, the viewer, distracted by those branches, I used a shallow depth of field so you can see they're out of focus and her face is in focus. Whenever you see a diagonal line, take advantage of it. It's something that can add interest and vitality to your photograph. We have got this garbage can, which we're going to get out of the frame. I could deal with it in Photoshop, but why not crop it out right now and get rid of it? Although it's really tough because it's right where I want the edge there. Okay, so that has a different feel to it. That has a different mood.
Number 10. Capturing the decisive moment. A decisive moment can occur with almost any of the composition tools we're going over. It's a matter of looking for that exact moment to press the shutter. But since there is a lag between thinking about shooting, the mechanical action of putting your finger on the shutter, and the following step of the shutter actually opening and closing, to seize the exact moment, you have to anticipate when to press the button, and do so before the event occurs. Otherwise, it will be too late.
You really have to be ready for anything. This is like being prepared. Louis Pasteur said, chance favors the prepared mind. Well, in this case, if you're prepared, you've got your camera ready and you're always looking, you always have to look for photographs because they could pop up at any second. Like even now, I missed a bunch. I could have gotten some shots of her kind of jogging over there, and that would have been cool. But I'm talking to you, so I have an excuse. Okay, I'm going to have you jump from where you are to the other side, and I'm actually going to get a bunch of shots. 1, 2, 3. Nice. Let's do that one more time. I really like it. I'm going to go landscape because I want to make sure I get your arms. Okay. And on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Nice. I think those will be good, folks. We'll see. Okay, we'll keep going this way.
Number 11. Punctuation points in your photographs. Punctuation in writing tells the reader when to pause, stop, or really pay attention. They separate elements and clarify meaning. Photographs can also have punctuation points that draw your viewer's eye to the subject and add an additional note that highlights your composition. I once took a photo of a lighthouse at Port Legat at Cape de Cruz in Spain. It was taken in the blue hour, after sunset, so the lighthouse itself was in silhouette, and just the flame of its beacon was showing through the glass against the dark sky, and that added as the punctuation point, drawing your eye right to it. Multi-award-winning photographer Bob Holmes explains that punctuation really elevates a photograph. It can be a splash of colour, a person, or even a dog. In other words, anything that gives it the small additional element that highlights your photograph and draws your eye to it. Number 12. Capture a gesture at the decisive moment. Imagine a picture of a ballerina, her left leg outstretched, toe pointed. Her left arm also pointing to the left, parallel to her leg. And in front of the dancer you can see another dancer doing exactly the same action. So in this case you have the dancer's toe placed at the exact moment to mirror the foreground dancer's motion, with her arm leading to it. As Holmes explains, while you're shooting, pay particular attention to the position of your subject's hands, feet and legs to capture them at the decisive moment. A gesture can even be from an object, its jutting lines for example. Number 13. Angles are like an author's choice of words. There could be a misconception that you only shoot from a standing position, and at that from eye level only, at about 5 to 6 feet for most people. One of the fastest ways to improve your photography is to look for other angles to shoot from. No angle, or flat angle, it is taken head on to the subject, or parallel to the plane of the subject. The subject looks flat, two-dimensional, not round, and reduces the feel of speed. Change your angle to emphasize what you want your viewer to see, or not see, and how you want them to see it. A high angle shot where you're shooting down on the subject reduces the subject's height and slows down the motion. It gives superiority to the viewer over the subject. Low angles where you're shooting up at the subject can exaggerate the height and speed of the subject when comparatively near to the camera. The subject gains stature and commands attention and gains excitement and speed.
I'm a little bit higher than you right now. And one thing I love about this camera is I can fold out my screen and I can now use it to compose with and to shoot with. So I'm purposefully shooting down here and I can still see what's going on. This is really a handy tool, and I'll show you how I often use it. Now, wow, lots of green, and the green is really popping. Yeah, it's good. It's focusing right on your eye. I'm going to get as high as I can looking down. Which, by the way, would you look up at the lens? Actually, look even higher than the lens, yeah. Because that makes your eyes look bigger if you look up. Now, we're just demonstrating angles here, guys. This is interesting. It is framed, and she's looking up. Again, it can be very flattering for a woman to shoot looking down, as Bambi Cantrell said. We've got some light in your eyes, which is good. We're competing with the background a little bit, but I'm using a very shallow depth of field, so we should blur that out. I'm going to get a little closer. That's cool. Nice. So this just gives you a different angle. Okay, let's do the reverse and see what happens. You stand there. And again, just play around because you don't know. We've got some color happening in the sky because we're in the golden hours. And the golden hours are not just because, you don't just use the golden hours because it's a beautiful sunset. It also is great on skin. But the problem is everything is pretty shaded. Would you face that way? And because I'm getting more direct light on her. Now, so notice what I've done is I'm quite a bit lower than her. I don't think this is a great shot, personally. But we're going to go ahead and check it out. I'm going to move around. Oh, look, the light just came on. Hang on, let's take advantage of this. Okay. Okay. Now that's a pretty interesting what's happening. The color of the light, it's very warm. Very orange.
Bambi Cantrell, a multi-award-winning photographer, is a master of portraiture and shared these tips with me. When working with a mature woman, shoot from a higher camera angle looking down on her to avoid seeing saggy skin under her neck. This draws attention to the upper part of the face and not the jawline. Also, with any subject, have her drop her chin and look up with her eyes, which makes the eyes appear larger. With a man, use a low camera angle looking up at him to make him appear more powerful, stronger and taller. When working with a heavier subject, use a higher camera angle and have them lean forward with their chest. Number 14. Viewpoint. How to see your subject. We've covered the heights that you can shoot from, resulting in the various angles. Let's have a look at the distance to your subject. The apparent size of an object in relation to things farther away from the camera can be increased by bringing the camera closer to it. There are an infinite number of points of view you could assume with your camera when capturing your subject. Taking a photo of my 3 sons sharing a bicycle, I might move in close so they appear larger than the tall trees in the background. Then, instead of taking a detached and stationary viewpoint, I can move with them, letting the background blur as they would see it, to try and capture the feeling of being there with them. This is another way of expressing the viewpoint of your subject. Another example of viewpoint is also where you stand in relation to your subject. 2 photos of someone looking through a window. If one is taken from outside, looking at them from quite close, and the other is taken from inside the room, looking at them from quite far away, they will each have a quite different feel. Number 15. Steelyard composition is balanced. The word steelyard describes a device for weighing that has a place for the item being weighed on the right side, and on the left side is a sliding weight to get it in balance. The larger object is on one side, and the smaller is on the other. Steelyard is a composition format that places a larger object closer to the centre, balanced by a smaller object on the other side that is placed closer to the opposite edge of the picture. This creates a feeling of balance. A feeling of balance forms in your image, and because there are only 2 main subjects, there is a sense of simplicity.